The Boys Who Challenged Hitler. Chapter 5. Flames of Resistance. Denmark seemed a place right out of a Hans Christian Andersen fairy tale in the first months of 1942, especially compared to so many other places in the world where bloody conflict was raging. Every morning in Copenhagen, Danish King Christian X took a horseback ride through the streets, saluted by both the Danish citizens and the German soldiers he passed. The Danish Minister of Foreign Affairs, Niels Svenningsen, took his morning rides with the German High Commander, Werner Best. While citizens and soldiers were being shot in Norway, Danish business leaders lunched with German officers, negotiating deals over pastry. Unemployed Danish workers were sent to Germany and given the opportunity to work for the Nazis, while uniformed German soldiers strolled through Denmark's city streets arm in arm with Danish women. In the early months of 1942, it was clear that many Danish officials were expecting a Nazi victory in which Denmark would be a business partner. Winston Churchill referred to Denmark on the radio as Hitler's tame canary. Nud Peterson. After the Fuchs strike, we turned our attention to German vehicles. To our arsenal of blue paint, hammers, and bicycles, we added gasoline and matches. Arson became our game. We took to carrying a small quantity of petrol with us when we went out, stuffing the canister in a school bag. As always, we specialized in quick strikes, in and out. One day, during our bicycle reconnaissance, we found 3 large German transport trucks unguarded in a field. We crept up to each and raised our eyes above the windows to make sure no one was hiding or sleeping inside. All were empty. Quickly, one of us slashed the seats, pulled the stuffing out, and doused it with gasoline. Another painted our iconic blue swastika with lightning bolts on each truck. On a signal, a third tossed a lit match into each cabin, and we tore out of there as fast as we could. Flames were instant. Petrol made all the difference. Another afternoon, we came upon an unguarded German tractor near the airfield in Lindum, a suburb of Aalborg. Again, we slashed the seats, painted the symbol, and prepared the stuffing, but suddenly realized no one had remembered the petrol. We ordered Bjorg, the youngest of us, to ride back to the monastery and retrieve it. He objected that we should draw straws. We told him to get going. He ignored us and instead opened up the gas tank and threw a lit match into it, igniting the vehicle. That was classic Bjorg. He looked the innocent type, the kind of innocent who is the most dangerous. With blonde curls, twinkling blue eyes, and a sweet smile, he seemed angelic, but he loved action. He was fearless and smart and very quick on his feet. He was hot-tempered and mouthy as well, which sometimes got us in trouble. He was the youngest of us all, still only 14, but I liked him. We shared an irreverent sense of humor. He was a lot like Little Nud had been back in Odense. Both were fearless and both were small. Bjorg and I grew close. He lived about 15 miles to the west of us in a small town named Nibe, but went to school in Aalborg. Jens knew his older brother, and that's how he found us. He was so hungry to join us that he often rode his bicycle 15 miles through snowy streets back and forth between Nibe and Aalborg to be with us. When an operation called for 2, Bjorg and I often worked together. We developed a feel for each other, often one that didn't call for words. One would distract, the other would strike. For example, one time Eigel, Jens, Bjorg, and I came upon several German roadsters lined up behind a fence downtown. We could plainly see a pistol resting on the front seat of the nearest car. It set us drooling. We had to have it. The Germans had posted a single-armed soldier by the fence. Clearly bored, he was absent-mindedly watching a few kids play football in the adjacent street. Bjorg stood still and observed the game intently. When the ball rolled loose in our direction, he sprinted after it and kicked it over the fence. The ball came to rest beneath one of the German vehicles. I ran up and asked the guard to please be allowed to fetch it. The soldier stood aside and let me open the gate. Inside, I picked up the ball, and as Bjorg occupied the guard with a question, I ran to the car and snatched the gun, stuffing it into my waistband. Then I trotted back out into the street and kicked the ball back to the boys and walked away. We got better and better at disabling the German vehicles we found throughout Aalborg, especially near the airport. We learned how to pry off a radiator screen in a flash and either steal or smash the exposed parts. Always, we left our signature in bright blue paint. The vehicles we wanted destroyed most were lined up right outside my room at Badolfi Square. We could see them through the curtain at every Churchill Club meeting. They were an eyesore, an affront, an insult. While winter swirled around the monastery's ancient walls, we gathered in Jens's room debating various schemes for taking them out, even if it meant killing the guard. More and more, weapons became our obsession. It was all we could talk about. Now that we had a pistol and a collection of iron rods we had discovered in the monastery attic, were we really going to use them? One afternoon, through a fog of pipe smoke, we considered a plan for a new strike. The goal would be to decommission the cars outside my window to make them useless. 2 of us would work on the cars, removing radiator screens, pulling and smashing engine parts, while others distracted the guard with conversation. Officer, sir, do you have a light? You don't understand Danish? I'm so sorry, sir. Oh, what is the word for matches in German? If the guard detected the operation, a 4th club member concealed beneath one of the cars would slip up behind him and smash him in the head with an iron rod. Or, someone suggested, maybe a blow to the neck would be better. Whatever, we would kill him. Once he was dead, we'd drag him under one of the cars. It was agreed. We drew straws to see who would smash the guard. The winner or loser sat down and turned the rod over and over in his hands, trying to picture himself using it. But we didn't do it. 2 members who were not present during the planning session objected when they heard about it. Hit a man from behind? That's not us. That violates our code. It is cowardly, even if the target's a German. Back when we had started the club, we all vowed that we could and would kill. But when the time came, we were woefully unprepared. We were middle-class kids, sons of professionals, boys who had never shot a gun or wielded a club or slit a throat. We had no military training. We were too young to enlist in the Army, and our Army barely existed now anyway. We had no experience with the feelings involved in taking a life. A typical military inductee went through basic training or boot camp where one's personality was stripped to the core, desensitized to accept the horror of war as part of the job, and rebuilt as a warrior. For us, young patriots having to invent and train ourselves as we went along, it would take more time and preparation to be ready to kill. So the Budolphi car mission was postponed, but not scrapped. We would just have to work up to it. Our aborted mission was bitterly disappointing, though, especially when Jens received a coded letter from our cousin Hans-Jorgen in Odense. To be safe, Jens and Hans-Jorgen had developed a code for trading war bulletins. Marie Antoinette had used the same code pattern, which Jens and Hans-Jorgen had modernized so it could be deciphered with the words, "Denmark expects every man to do his duty." Hans-Jorgen wrote that the RAF Club had just destroyed 15 German cars in Odense, exactly what we had failed to do at Budolphi Square. Details were sketchy, but it was clear Hans-Jorgen had been the leader. The target was a converted riding stable filled with German automobiles and other war materials. They struck on the evening of an all-day Boy Scout assembly. Hans-Jorgen, a Boy Scout, had spent the day dressed in his full scouting uniform, eagerly taking part in troop activities so everyone would see him and remember that they saw him there. Just after dark, Hans-Jorgen slipped out of the assembly hall and rode his bike to the stable. The guard usually posted outside the door had been removed by an RAF Club sympathizer, a girl who had flirted him away from his post. Hans-Jorgen tiptoed inside and, using some sort of homemade bomb, ignited a quantity of straw. He then anonymously telephoned the fire department to report a fire on the opposite side of Odense. Then, still in his uniform, he beat it back to the scouting forum to rejoin his mates. The fire brigade swallowed the bait and clanged off to the wrong end of town. All those lovely roadsters, reported Hans-Jorgen in his message to Jens, had over an hour to burn into charred steel sculptures. It was a bold stroke. Hans-Jorgen proudly claimed that the RAF Club had pulled ahead of the Churchill Club. We had no argument to offer. All we could do was try to match it.